Yo, did you guys see? There's a new beta build, Mega Poggers. There's a new affix called Devour. Devour these nuts. Jesus Christ. Wow, you guys got absolutely Anyways, greetings, Dungeoneers. Wait, what the hell? How the hell is WoW gonna do this to us? So, guys, it looks like there's good news. It looks like they finally listened. I was looking through some of these. They watched the video. One of my complaints was that there are many tank busters that do bajillions of damage. Guess what happened? Twilight Overseer, Rive, physical damage, nerfed. General Umbrus, Skull Splitter damage, nerfed and blockable. Draga, don't even know what that is. Crush, nerfed. Spirit Bolt, nerfed. Okay, there's not a lot of tank nerfs over here, but these are all good nerfs. Nerfing a lot of bosses. Yep, Tank Buster here, also nerfed. There's Edna, Seismic Smash, Crystalline Smash, Flames Grab, Igneous Hammer. Okay, so like, most of the Tank Buster stuff that I complained about, they nerfed. That's a good start. That's a very good start. Now, I mean, tanks are still gonna require healing. Not all tanks, but you know, like, some tanks that required a lot of healing will still require healing. Like Prop Paladin, right? Prop Paladin requires healing. And tank tuning too. Where the hell is the tuning at? Dude, how's there so much garbage on Wowhead? Like, bro, I don't give a fuck about Hell Breach dungeons, fucking 226 fire resistance, seasonal versus eternal, exclusive seasonal discovery interview, fucking Panther Cub Pet in Cataclysm Classic Phase 2, Season of Discovery, Phase 4 DPS rankings. What the shit is all this? Alright, we found it. Page 2. This was from last night. Oh my god. Alright, so some crazy buffs happened. I don't know why they buffed Frost DK, but Frost DK got big buffs. Sandling got a small buff. Blood DK got a 10% buff and like a slight nerf to Bone Storm, but it's gonna be much simpler to play. Well, maybe not simpler to play, but like, you know, it's a little bit less annoying on the rotation. Bone Storm now only consumes 5 Bone Shield charges, which means you're not getting as much CR or CDR on Bone Storm, but it only consumes 5 Bone Shield charges, so that's not too bad. Overall, it's like a relative nerf because Blood Decay is only getting a 10% buff. Meanwhile, other tanks, like Demon Hunter, is getting a 15% damage buff. And same with Bear Tank, Warrior, all those other classes are getting bigger buffs than DK. So DK relatively got nerfed damage-wise. Then there's some Eldraki stuff, Bellsguard, slight nerf to this part, but more single target damage and more damage allocated to Burning Blades. So a little bit more passive damage, a little bit less damage on Bellsguard's cooldowns. That's good. I like this change a lot. And then Druid of the Claw. Druid of the Claw got massive buffs. Huge buffs, actually insane. So Ruthless Aggression, I was playing the other talent, but I think I 100% play this afterwards. 35% increased attack speed, that means more Maul procs, well, Tooth and Claw procs, more Ravage procs. This is big. Killing Strikes, you're just getting 3% more agility, that's big. Strike for the Heart, that's like Mangle damage, Thrash damage, I believe. Some other things, I don't remember what else, like Swipe. It's gonna crit more, do more crit damage. This part doesn't really matter because you don't really take this talent. Tear Down the Mighty. Feral got a bunch of buffs. Ravage got a 35% damage buff to primary target. That's a lot. Dreadful Wound, that's the dot from Ravage. 25%, that's a lot. Mangle now does 15% more damage instead of 10%. And Maul and Raise buffed by another 10%, which also adds to Ravage damage. And then this is the talent that makes you go into cat form. I don't think this talent will be good still in M+. Like, it's probably still gonna be the better damage choice, especially for prio damage, but you're never gonna use this in AoE, and it's just way too risky to use in M+. And it also costs way too many talent points in your base tree to pick up. Because if you play this, you're playing Break, Rip, and that's 2 extra talent points taken in your class tree. So I don't think this is worth still, unless you're doing Raid or like, you know, if you really want the extra single target. I don't even know how much more it's going to be, but there's no way this is worth right now. But the problem is they ended up nerfing the hell out of Elune's Chosen. So Moonfire, 2% less damage, and more importantly, Moonfire damage nerfed by 15%. Twin Moonfire damage decreased by 2%. These are some pretty big hits to Elune's Chosen. Guys, I think Moonbear might be dead. We might be cat bears now. Or maybe we're just some other tanks now. But yeah, so Bear got a 20% overall damage buff, and all the Moonfire stuff got nerfed pretty heavily. And so yeah, Brewmaster got the 15% damage buff too. Prop Paladin also got the 15% damage buff. And the final tank, Prop Warrior. Prop Warrior got fucking huge buffs. Now, I did say in my video that Prop Warrior is looking to be the weaker tank in terms of damage. This is insane. I've never seen a class get buffed by 30% overall. 30% buff. Revenge buffed by 25%. Execute 50%. Devastator 25%. Shield Charge 25%. Ravager 25%. Kira is saying it's around a 34% overall damage buff. That's a big number. That's a lot. So if I was doing like, you know, maybe I would say before I was even doing 30% less than other tanks. Well, I mean, but it's relative, right? So other tanks were getting 15% damage buff. So relatively, Pro Warrior is gaining like, you know, about like twice that amount. A little bit more than twice that amount. But still, I think after this, it'll still be like mostly the same. Because I mean, we got the tank nerf stuff, or tank buster nerf stuff. That means Prop Paladins aren't going to be in as much trouble. Also, like a lot of these nerfs are pretty big for Prop Warrior because they added a lot of blockable stuff like Voracious Bite. Alerting Shrill was doing insane damage too to Prop Warriors. I mean, overall, just like great changes. Just like everything about all these changes are great. But I still think, like, you know, the better tanks are just going to be Druid still. Just you're probably going to play Druid of the Claw instead of Moonbear. Demon Hunter is still looking very good because caster meta is still very OP. Oh, and also Augmentation. Augmentation Evoker is still OP, guys. I said in my video, playing these dungeons without Augmentation is rough. And it's still the case. I was talking to some Augs. It's looking like anywhere from like a 7 to 8% nerf to Augmentation, which is really not that much. Augmentation were extremely overtuned before this patch. It's still going to be OP. It's still the only DPS spec in the game, or quote-unquote DPS, that provides defensive benefits to both your tank and your healer. And I mean, just to your entire party. It's just way too powerful of a spec. The only way you're not going to play Aug is if it gets nerfed by like another 30-40%. Like you would have to hard kill Augmentation Evoker or completely rework how they work. Either one. They would have to do either one of those two changes in order to make Augmentation not basically required. And I don't see those types of changes happening, I'm gonna be honest. Especially this late into the beta cycle. Like maybe next patch, we'll have to see. At what level is Aug mandatory? Aug is not mandatory by any means. It's just, it makes it so that if you're doing any challenging content, it'll make it significantly easier. That's all. It's all relative, right? You could be undergeared as hell trying to attempt a +5 key. If you're in like in an undergeared group, just think of having an augmentation as if it was adding like, I'm just gonna give it an arbitrary number, like 20%, or not 20%, like 20 item levels to your character. Think about how strong a healer and a tank is with an extra 20 item levels. That's a lot. It makes it so that you can actually handle whatever that content is. Now, if you're like vastly overgeared, right? Like if you're already 630 item level going into a +10 key, you're probably completely fine. You don't need an Augmentation Evoker. But you know, the higher you go in key levels, the more you're worrying about the mobs and bosses beating your entire group down, the more important an Augmentation Evoker will become. Yeah, so overall, it's very likely still going to be a caster meta. There were some mage changes too. Mages did get nerfed a bit, but you're probably still going to play them, I believe. Frost got mostly untouched. Ele Shaman got absolutely murdered from what I saw. I'm going to say it here first. I think that for this expansion, there's going to be at least one Shaman spec that will be meta. That's what I think. I just think Shamans, they bring so much right now. And their buff is just so good. And they also are one of the most recently reworked classes. But that's my guess. My guess is that at least one of the Shaman specs will be meta. Aug won't die as long as the chats keep saying how important they are because it trickles down to Gary doing +5 keys with an Aug. Well, I mean, honestly, it's literally just me saying how important Augs are. Like, I don't think anyone really ever talks about that type of stuff, realistically. And it's not like that many people even listen to me. In fact, most people call me a fucking idiot, at least from what I've seen in my YouTube comments. I love Aug, yeah, it's just like, you know, here's what really happens. What really happens is people go on Raider.io, then, you know, okay, I need to find accurate, whatever, I'm just gonna look at this, right? They're gonna look at this, right? And then they're gonna be like, oh, everyone's playing an Augmentation. And then they probably play with an Aug in actual keys. And they're like, wait, this shit is fucking great. I'm having so much better of a time playing with an Augmentation Evoker. Oh shit. Big news here. People complained hard enough and they reverted. The M plus drops. This change was dog shit. So, you know, small W for M plus enjoyers. Big win for the... Are we the mole people now? I mean, we're like the original mole people, right? You know how Yumi TV talks about the mole people, the ones who enjoy playing fucking delves. Imagine being a delve enjoyer. They snuck another Ele Shaman nerf in the post? Is that real? Wait, did they actually like add more to the nerfs or buffs or whatever? Hold on, let's see. Oh. Holy shit, I completely ignored this part. I'm gonna be honest. Yeah, so overall, great M plus changes. I mean, I still don't like the direction of M plus personally, but these are good changes. This will make tanking a much better experience, and it does address at least like, you know, half of the concerns I had with M plus with the tank changes. What will be the best caster DPS in M plus? Augmentation Evoker. Yeah, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but it is indeed the Augmentation.